got a question for both of you. When I say the word drug or drugs, what comes to mind? First thing that comes to mind.
Narcotics.
Narcotics?
Uh-huh.
So you imagine somebody like shooting up, I don't know, with needles, someone's, like, what do you imagine?
Well, it goes there, and then it goes to, like, I've been working with a clinic right down south, and it's a lot of, like, master plant medicine. So you get into, like, ayahuasca, kambo, iboga, psilocybin. So
All
that's
those
where I'm at when I hear the word drugs.
That, I think, is like, an image of drugs that, makes sense to me. I can picture that. I can picture a clinic with plant medicine. What about for you, Brett?
Have you ever seen the movie Wet Hot American Summer?
No.
Oh, it's a comedy, but there's this one scene where they're all just strewn about the floor with needles sticking out of their veins and coke all over their faces. That's what I think of when I think of drugs. I don't know why.
Well, did you see Elon Musk's tweet where he said that next he's going to buy Coca-Cola so he can put the cocaine back in Coca-Cola?
Finally. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Do you think people know that Coca-Cola, the first version of Coca-Cola, had cocaine in it? It was a pick-me-up. Still is today, but...
It had much of a different kind of kick back then.
So I want to
I
talk...
wonder what that'd be like.
Oh my gosh. Well, man, I mean, maybe we'll find out someday.
Coke? Yeah, maybe we'll find out.
Yeah.
Under Elon's reign.
They're going to have to change the name to, like, Cocaine Cola instead of just
Cocaine
Coke.
Cocaine-a-cola.
I do think that's why it was called that, though. So, boys, I want to talk about a drug that is in this room right now.
I'm looking at you, Trello.
There are at least 3 people that are high on this drug right now. And that drug is caffeine.
What?
Oh, nice.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks.
I love caffeine.
So I want to, if I said, like, oh, caffeine is a drug, do you agree with that take?
I mean, by the technical definition of drugs, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, so in college, I took, my favorite class I think that I took was Drugs, Society, and Life, is what it was called. And
that sounds like it'd be the most interesting class.
It was. Like, they have these schedules of drugs, right? Depending on what they do, their severity. And caffeine's in the same schedule as cocaine. So because of that class, I've always considered it.
What's that class? Would that be like mild stimulant?
Mild to moderate, yeah. Mm-hmm. But kind of stimulant, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how this topic came to mind for me is I started reading this book last year. Well, I listened to it on Audible. There's some people out there like, you technically didn't read the book.
You didn't read
you
it.
Listened to it. I'm like, yeah, fine. I finished the book.
Do you not even know how to read? Listening doesn't count.
I like Audible, okay? It's the future. I don't look at pieces of paper to consume my... All right, that's a different podcast episode, but Caffeine by Michael Pollan is so interesting. So Michael Pollan wrote this book called Your Mind on Plants. And Trello, you'd be really interested in this. He went into this book with the intention of being, I want to explore plant medicine. And plant medicine is an interesting term because every drug or anything you eat, anything you consume is somehow is a plant making it to your body. All medicine is plant medicine, if you think about it. Mm-hmm. But I guess, specific plant medicines like the ayahuascas, the psilocybins. And he figured like, all right, I'm going to do this little pit stop on caffeine because caffeine comes from plants. And he got so entrenched in just caffeine that he made a separate book on it. So it didn't make it into Your Mind on Plants. He just released a book called Caffeine by Michael Pollan. Mm-hmm. And I read it.
What's it about? Sorry.
It's about sugar. But for people out there who think maybe caffeine isn't a drug, it's just caffeine. It's not drugs. If you don't believe me, try quitting caffeine right now. Try going 3 months without caffeine and let me know what your first week without caffeine was like. Did you experience headaches? Did you experience brain fog? Were you irritable? Because if you try and quit caffeine, you go through caffeine withdrawal. Like you will go through legit caffeine withdrawal.
So you're saying I shouldn't quit? That's what I'm hearing.
And I'm addicted to caffeine. Are you? I need it every day. I drink caffeine every day.
Every day. Yeah, for me.
Once again, this episode is brought to you in part by Starbucks.
Please sponsor.
Please.
We love caffeine.
We're not desperate, but we're a little bit desperate. Okay, so
Tell me about this book.
Michael Pollan, when he was learning all about caffeine, he decided he was going to quit caffeine for 3 months while he was writing this book. And he had an espresso when he was done with that 3-month cleanse. And he said it was the most psychoactive experience of his entire life, like having copious amounts of caffeine after having none. And that just convinced him that caffeine it's a societally accepted drug, but it is a actual hard like drug, you know? And so I thought this was interesting. He goes into the whole history of caffeine, and this freaking blew my mind.
Yeah, that's something I know nothing about.
It's really interesting. So caffeine is new to the scene as far as like things humans consume. Like humans have this sort of ancient relationship with alcohol. They think that mead was the first alcohol humans consumed. Mead is honey wine. And they think that humans discovered it by accident. And so we've been consuming alcohol for ever. For, like as far back as you can go, alcohol's been around.
Jesus loved it.
Jesus, turning water into wine. Obviously, water is like pivotal to our entire existence, so ancient relationship with water.
Right.
But drinking caffeine has only been around like a couple hundred years.
See, that's surprising to me. That feels like something that would have been discovered somehow. I don't know how, but long ago.
I gotta interject. Like, what about green tea? Because I think like ancient, I don't know, did they not have that until just recent?
Not until the last couple centuries.
That's nuts.
So
That is surprising.
we discovered caffeine through 3 sources. There are 3 sources where caffeine predominantly is derived from. It turns out like soda doesn't grow on trees. Tea, coffee, and chocolate.
What?
Those are the 3 sources of caffeine.
Oh.
And they were all discovered a couple hundred years ago. And all the countries in the Middle East at the time kind of had a monopoly on these plants, because plants that have caffeine in them only grow near the equator. It has to be kind of a temperate environment, and they only grow, like that's why like most of our coffee here is imported from like Colombia and Brazil, because it's like the perfect conditions to grow coffee.
There we go.
But this is really interesting. So to answer your question, Trello, we discovered caffeine by accident, like all good things. Caffeine is an allergen that plants produce to discourage mammals from eating them. What? It's a poison.
Okay.
And humans were like, joke's on you for producing that poison. We're
going to put that in everything.
I love it. I can't imagine my life without that poison. So.
Wait, so caffeine is just a warning to not drink it?
Yeah, like plants evolved to be like, maybe if we poison these humans, they won't pick this plant anymore.
Oh, that is the most human thing to do. Like, warning, don't do this. I'm going to do that on mass scale.
Okay, well, imagine the first person who invented cheese.
Yeah?
Like, we are weird and messed up. There was a guy that's like, hey, Brett, you see that cow's milk in the corner of the barn that's been sitting there for like 3 months? You should eat that.
No, dude, it's hard now.
Try it. Just try it.
It's hard.
It's really tasty.
It's not even milk anymore.
I know. It's something new.
Fine. That's delicious.
We should put this in every single thing we eat now.
That's true. Probably caffeine came about in the same relative way the cheese came about.
Yeah,
that's historically
weirdo
accurate.
Was like, I'm going to eat that curdled milk. I love it. I love it.
So typical human.
So this was interesting. Coffee and tea, that makes sense. But chocolate has caffeine in it too. Oh my gosh, 12 milligrams per ounce in chocolate. You eat enough chocolate, you'll actually be a little stimulated. Crazy.
How much would you have to eat?
Well, I don't know how many ounces in like a normal Ghirardelli square, but I think a lot more than a cup of coffee. Yeah, so the Middle East had this crazy just monopoly.
Yeah.
Because these plants only grow in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was these Europeans, specifically the English, they started to love tea and coffee. But these countries in the Middle East, they would roast all of the coffee and they would, blend the tea leaves, and then they would sell you the imported roasted coffee and roasted tea leaves. But there was this group of English and Irish people that snuck coffee and tea out into England, and then the whole monopoly fell apart. And then coffee just spread across the world like wildfire.
Really?
And they started roasting it in-house. And in Michael Pollan's book, he argues that caffeine is responsible for, and that there's a good case to be made, that caffeine is responsible for the Enlightenment.